notice, and this is a typical copyright. We continue with mathematics syllabus, CSEC, 2018 to 2027. Just a reminder that the syllabus is divided into 9 sections, and that the examination papers would be paper 1, 60 multiple choice questions, paper 2, assortment of structured questions, and paper 3, which would be SBA for school candidates and an alternative to SBA if you are a private candidate. Again, in all papers of the examination, a formula sheet will be provided. Silent, electronic, non-programmable calculators are permitted in papers 2 and 3, but not paper 1, which of course means that we have one caveat, which is that you need to know the times tables 2 to 12 if you already don't know it. It is crucial that you know the multiplication table. I cannot overemphasize that. Schedule of videos. In September 2024, that is this month, I am hoping to have all 32 videos published on number theory and computation. Then next month, October 2024, consumer arithmetic. The following month, November, sets, followed by measurements. That will take us to the end of the year. Then in January 2025, statistics, followed by algebra in February. Then March, relations, functions, and graphs, section 8 in April 2025, geometry and trigonometry. And finally, section 9, vectors and matrices, in May, by mid-May 2025. Just a reminder that section 1 is subdivided into 32 videos. That is, I have subdivided it into 32 videos, and all those 32 videos will be made available on YouTube in their entirety. This section forms the foundation on which the rest of the syllabus is based. How well you can handle this section will predict how well you will be able to do with the rest of the syllabus. These 32 videos from section 1 cover the math schoolwork up to the end of Form 5, grade 9. That is from Form 1 to Form 3 work. So we are reviewing that and making sure you know that before we proceed. So we are now here, video 13. We still have to go up to video 32 for this section. Convert among fractions and percents and decimals. This that you see up here is a print screen from the syllabus as it relates to the spelling percent and percent. That is percent as 2 words and percent as 1 word. Both are correct. The 2-word version is more common in Canada and Britain and maybe the Caribbean, while the 1-word spelling is preferred in the United States. If you look up here, you will notice that CXC uses 2 words here, and then in explaining it, they use 1 word here. So either one is acceptable for us. And as it relates to the word spellings, that depends on the context, whether we would use that as singular or plural. So we are now here. We completed that and that. So we are at 1.4, video 3. You may recall we said that these are all fractions. Now, right now, we are going to carry percents to fractions. And then we also said that these are the decimal equivalent and the percent equivalent. We are going to learn how to carry percent to fraction. But before we do that, we will learn how to carry percent to decimal, since this is actually much easier. So we are going from percent to decimal to begin with. And after that, we will go from percent to fraction. You may recall in the last video, we learned how to carry decimal to percent. And we said to express a decimal as a percent, you multiply by 100%. So, okay, if you are going from decimal to percent and you multiply by 100, what do you think you should do if you are going from percent to decimal? Simply put, we will divide by 100. And since we want to keep the decimal format, we will shift the point 2 places. As I said, we will keep the format as decimal with a 0 point something. Now, if you find this video useful and interesting, please like and share. That is, like and share. And you may also consider subscribing to this channel. After all, it doesn't cost you anything, and it means a lot to me. Remember from the last video when we were carrying decimals to percent, we multiply the decimal by 100. We got 50%, multiplied by 100, 80%, and so on. Look at this. We were multiplying the decimal by the percent. As we pointed out just now, to carry percents to decimal, well, you will divide. So 50% divided by 100%, that percent cancel that percent. You're left with 50 over 100. And to divide by 100, you shift the point 2 places to the left. So we go 1, 2, and we get 0.5. 80%, we do the same thing. Shift the point 2 places to the left. The percentage sign cancel out, and you're left with 0.8. And so on. 15% becomes 0.15, 75% becomes 0.75, and 12.5%, again, you shift the point 2 places to the left, and you get 0.125. Notice you're dividing the percent by 100 to carry it to decimal. And over on the left here, we were multiplying the decimal to carry it to a percent. So this is fairly easy. Now let's deal with carrying a percent to a fraction. So we finished with carrying a percent to a decimal. That's very easy. Now we are going to carry percents to fractions. 25%. So to carry 25% to a fraction, you write 25 over 100. By definition, percent means parts per 100. So if you say 25%, you are saying 25 parts per 100. 25 parts per 100. That is the standard. If you say 15%, you are saying 15 parts per 100, which becomes 15 over 100. Always. It is always over 100. This denominator does not change. It is always over 100. If you are carrying a percent to a fraction, it is always over 100. 5% equal 5 over 100. 2.5%, 2.5 over 100. 0.05%, this part here, over 100. And if you say 120%, which is unusual, it is still 120 over 100. So it's fairly simple to carry a percent to a fraction. You just put the percentage part over 100 because percent means out of 100, parts per 100. So now let's look at that a different way. We said that to express a percent as a fraction, you remove the percentage sign from the right of the number and use 100 always as the denominator. Remember, we want it as a fraction, so we have to write it in a fraction format. Now, another way to look at it is you divide by 100 and you write the format as a fraction, not as a decimal, and you drop the percentage sign. We get the same thing. 25%, we drop the percentage sign, we divide by 100. But this time, we are not dividing by 100 and moving the decimal point. We are dividing by 100 and keeping it as a fraction. 15%, 15 divide by 100. Rewrite it like that, as a fraction format. We leave it as a fraction format. You have a numerator and a denominator. Leave it as a fraction format. 5%, 5 over 100. 2.5%, 2.5 over 100. 0.5%, 0.5 over 100. 120%, 120 over 100. Now, in the next slide, we will complete these actions here that we started because we did not reduce these, but we can reduce them. So 25 over 100, we can reduce that, and we get eventually a quarter. So 25% means 25 out of every 100, which also means 1 out of every 4. 15% means 15 out of every 100, which also means 3 out of every 20. So we reduce the 15 over 100 to the lowest it can go, and we get 3 over 20. 5% means 5 out of every 100. That is what it means, which gives us 1 over 20. So 5% is the same as 5 out of every 100, which is the same as 1 out of every 20. Now we come to 2.5%, which is 2.5 out of every 100. Now to reduce this, we make that a whole number, and since we move the point one place, we will add an extra 0 here. So that now becomes 25 over 1,000. And when we reduce that, we get 1 out of 40. So 2.5% means 2.5 out of every 100, or 25 out of every 1,000, which eventually gives us 1 out of every 40. Everything you see in this line means the same thing. 0.05%, again, that means 0.05 out of 100. We make this into a whole number. We move the point 2 places. So we will add 2 zeros down here, and we get 5 over 10,000. We can reduce that, and we will get 1 over 2,000. Remember, everything in this line, we are saying the same thing. 0.05% is 0.05 out of 100, which is 5 out of 10,000, which is 1 out of every 2,000. And then we come to 120%, which is 120 out of 100. So this is very unusual, which means 6 out of every 5. This is an improper fraction. We can carry it to a mixed number, 5 into 6, 5 ones 5, and 1 remaining over 5. So you could see we have a mixed number here. Now, anytime the percentage is greater than 100, it is more than 1, which gives us an improper fraction. 6 over 5. Now, be careful here. When you carry 2.5% to a fraction, it is 2.5 over 100. That is the fraction. You can reduce that by making that into a whole number and adding a 0 here. So you get 25 over 1,000, and you can further reduce that and make it 1 out of 40. If you have 0.05%, you rewrite that as 0.05 over 100, because percent means out of 100. This is now a fraction. If we want to reduce that, we make that into a whole number by moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. So we have to add 2 zeros here, which gives us 5 out of 10,000. That's our fraction, and we can reduce it and make it 1 out of 2,000. Now, your caution here is do not confuse reducing these fractions, they are already fractions, with converting decimals to fractions. 120%, 120 over 100 gives you 6 over 5, which eventually works out to be 1 and 1/5. So we have covered this objective by dividing it into 3 videos. Given any percent or fraction or decimal, you should be able to convert that one into the other two. So let's review what we have done. Now, as I said, given any one of the following, whether it's fraction, percent, or decimal, you should be able to convert that one into the other two. For this exercise, we are just going to take the first step, not to reduce a fraction and so on, just the very first thing that you would do. So here we go. We have a table. I will fill in the first one and we will see what the other two are. So let's begin with percent because we were just dealing with percent. 45%. As a decimal, we will divide by 100, but we will keep it in a decimal format. So we will shift the point 2 places to the left. So you get 0.45. Now we can carry that decimal to a fraction, but it is better to take the original information, because if you made a mistake here and then you take that and carry it to fraction, you will make a mistake there too. So let's stick with the original information data. We are going from 45% to fraction. Now remember we said we will divide by 100 too, but this time we will keep it as a fraction format. So it is 45 divided by, in both cases, whether it's fraction or decimal, to carry a percent, you divide by 100, except you keep the decimal one as a decimal format and you keep the fraction one as a fraction format. 6%. Follow the same procedure. Divide by 100, but keep it as a decimal format if you are carrying it to a decimal. So the point was here, we carried 1 place, 2 places, and we get 0.06. This is a decimal format, and that is fine. If we go to a fraction format, we will take the 6 and just put it over 100. 6 divide by 100. Later on, we can reduce these, but we are just dealing with the initial step. How about 0.2, 0.2%? Same thing. Divide by 100 and keep it as a decimal format if you are carrying it to decimal. So you move that point from where it was 2 places and you get 0.002. That's the decimal. And if it's 0.2%, that would be 0.2 over 100 as a fraction. 0.2 over 100. Later on, we can reduce this, but for now, we just want to get the very first step. Next one, 1/5. What is that as a decimal? What would you do? Well, 1/5 as written there actually means 1 divided by 5. So you would actually divide 1 by 5 and set it down as decimal format. And of course, 1/5 as a percent, you would multiply by 100. So 1/5 multiplied by 100%, you can work that out later on, and you will find that you get 20% here, and you get 0.2 there. 0.35 as a decimal. Let's go to a percent first. We multiply by 100, which means that we shift the point 2 places to the right, which gives us 35%. Okay, now 0.35 as a fraction. There are 2 ways you could do that. You could write down the 35 first, and on the 8 denominator, you replace that point with a 1, and then you add zeros to the right of that 1, as many digits as you have to the right of the point. So you get 35 over 100. This one was for the point, and these two zeros for those two digits. Now, that's one way. Another way you could look at that is 0.35. This 5 here, what position is it in? Well, the 3 is in the 1/10th position. The 5 is in the 100th position. So we take the position on the far right. So it's really 35 over 100. Some students, some learners may prefer that. Either way, it is still 35 over 100, and later on you can reduce that. 11 over 20. Let's go to a decimal. You would divide the numerator by the denominator. As this indicates, 11 over 20 actually means 11 divided by 20. But we will state it as a decimal format. So we will divide 11 by 20 and state it as a decimal format, 0 point something something. And of course, if we are carrying a fraction to a percent, you would multiply the fraction by 100. In this case here, you will get 55%, and over here you'll get 0.55 when you work it out. But in this exercise, you didn't have to work it out. Okay, let's go with 29%. Let's go to a decimal. We shift the point 2 places to the left because we are dividing by 100. We keep it as a decimal format. So we get 0.29. If we carry this 29% to a fraction, we are still dividing by 100, but we write it as a fraction format, which would be 29 over 100. Now, 29 is a prime number, so we can't reduce that any further. So that's 29 over 100. Then we have this decimal here, 0.752. If we go to a percent, we will multiply by 100, which means that we will shift the point 2 places to the right to get the percent, which gives us 75.2. Now, when we go to a fraction, we can write 752 over, and we write 1 for that point, and 3 zeros because there are 3 digits to the right of the decimal point. That is one way. Or you can say this 7 is in the 1/10th position, this 5 is in the 100th position, this 2, which is a digit on the far right, is on the 1000th position. So it is 752 over 1000. Either way, you are correct. Finally, 7/8 as a fraction. What is that as a decimal? Well, as indicated here, 7 over 8 actually means 7 divided by 8. So you divide 7 by 8 and you leave it as a decimal, which would give us 0 point something something something. Now 7/8, of course, we want to carry it to a percent, so we multiply by 100. So 7/8, that's a fraction, multiply by 100%. When you work that out, you will get a very nice answer. I think it's 87.5, but it will work out. However, for this exercise, you weren't asked to actually work it out. We said we will just deal with the first step. So this is a review of what we did in this video, plus the last 2 videos. Just a reminder, we just did this video to help you keep track where we are and what else we need to do for this section. So we are here, we are here, we still have to go all the way down to 32. As I said, hopefully we'll get that done by the end of this month. We have completed the 3 videos that comprise Objective 4 in Section 1, these 3 videos. And that brings us to the end of this video.